I was very angry that Kinlaw wasn't Judy. I thought Jerry Judy and Shanahan's offense would be great.
Or Lamb.
But the Niners got Brandon Aiyuk with the 25th pick, and I think how quick he's shown he could be a number one receiver on this team, especially with how much Niner fans love Deebo Samuel last year. Niner fans are very quick. He just feels like he can do a lot of things, and if whatever you want to say, the Niners get a quarterback who can throw the ball downfield a bit, I think we'll see a little bit more of what Aiyuk can be. But for what we've seen in this very limited offense the 49ers have offered all year, I'm going to go Aiyuk an A.
That's cool.
A+. And I'll tell you why. Because even Deebo Samuel, when he first joined, he wasn't as featured and as familiar with the playbook. What was it about Brandon Aiyuk that he immediately showed up, and when he was immediately pressed into duty, he was immediately asked to shoulder the load, and he's done nothing but exactly what he's supposed to do with it. All a receiver can do is get open, and that's what this kid does. And it's just crazy, right? The comps that I had heard in the beginning, Odell Beckham with longer arms, I hear that all the time. And I'm just happy that the 49ers finally have like that sort of receiver that can go three levels, right? Like, I don't think that Aiyuk is asked to run deep, but he can. And that's the one thing that this team lacks. It's one thing to have a guy who's just a burner, right, that you put out there to just make the defense, worried about. It's another thing to have that guy be the guy who can actually catch that pass too, and is the best receiver on the field. So, it's an A+ for me, man. The guy has done nothing but ball since he's shown up, regardless of the quarterback, and regardless of what he's been asked to do, and regardless of who's in front of him.
Good answers. I'm going to go A-. And remember, I agree with everything you guys said, and I gave him the Offensive Player of the Year award for the 49ers. So I love him. I'm going to give it an A- again because of the position and the pick. He was the 25th pick. Is that right? 25?
I believe.
I'll say right now.
Yes, 25th pick. Niners traded up to get him too.
And he's a wide receiver. If I were a general manager, and I'm not, I would never take a wide receiver in round one unless I felt he was going to – you're passing on a Hall of Famer. Unless you're passing on a Hall of Famer, because – even if Brandon Aiyuk is a stud, chances are there's going to be some wide receiver picked 30 picks, 40 picks after him who will have a better career. And that's just kind of how the wide receiver position is. I would just exercise restraint because around pick 50, pick 60, pick 70, you can get a guy like Chase Claypool who's maybe just as good or maybe better. So A- pick. If he ends up being Jerry Rice, A+. But there's always that risk of taking a wide receiver high in the draft that really you didn't necessarily have to do it. You could have waited, and maybe if you didn't fall in love with one guy in particular, go back to 60, take what's available, you get a stud anyway. So that's the only thing I'd say negative about it. He's an excellent player, A-.
All right, so what about Charlie Warner? What are we going to say for him, guys? I'm just joking. All right.
First.
I feel like
these are incompletes, right? These are like
I feel like I'm looking at the draft class after Aiyuk. It's McKivitz, Warner, Juwan Jennings. Incomplete.
Well, let's not crush those kids. They haven't had a chance.
They haven't played yet.
But that was interesting to talk about those two.
Yeah.
So who would you have taken? Now I'm curious. Who would you have taken with the 14th pick? Just because I said I was for Judy. And I don't know if you think Judy's a future Hall of Famer. So who would you have if you could remember?
I would have taken Tristan Wirfs. I would have taken
Tampa too.
And at the time, I didn't realize McGlinchey was going to be McGlinchey.
Yes.
I thought he was serviceable, but what I was thinking was, you know what? Put Wirfs at guard, and then if you can't keep Trent Williams, you can move Wirfs to tackle in a year. I feel like it's way harder to find good offensive linemen than good defensive linemen today in 2020.
Well, it's tough though, right? Because the 49ers had a plan, right? They already knew that Joe was retiring.
Yes.
So they were, I guess, working on because the Trent deal happened day 2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, I don't know how much that factored into what they were trying to do, there with their pick. They were okay with letting Wirfs go because they were like, look, we got this Trent Williams thing on the line. It's always good to look back, but sometimes it's hard to remember where people made those decisions and why they made them.
Kinlaw may have a better career than Wirfs. So I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just trying to say what I would have done.
Yeah. So we're going back to April, what you thought then.
And then I think the other thing at 25, there's a couple things they could have done there instead of Aiyuk. One, they could have taken Jordan Love. That would have been interesting. Would have been interesting because they knew they weren't committed to Jimmy Garoppolo. The other thing they could have done, trade down. You could have traded down, get a third, get a second, and then take a corner like Trayvon Diggs and a wide receiver like Chase Claypool. They could have done something like that. I don't know if they could have pulled it off, but those are the alternatives.
Yeah, and what you say about the offensive line too, drafting it is one of my, because it's November, the draft is way far ahead. One of the ideas I've bounced around just because of what I've seen is if they choose to move on from Williams, trying to move up in the first round, they'd have to move up pretty far for I'm drawing a blank. Oregon left tackle.
Whatever his name is.
I forget his name. I'm drawing a blank.
In the comments.
Panay Sewell.
Yes.
And so and I think offensive tackle is very important to draft. Obviously in the draft, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
That's a weird sentence. But yeah. So I agree on the Wirfs thing. When I saw that Wirfs was still on the board at 13, one of my thoughts was, okay, maybe they're going with it.
Right. Because, I don't think people really expected him to be available. And I think what happened last year was it was a really good class for offensive tackles.
Yes.
There were 4. And if Wirfs had come out in 2021, he'd be more like a top 5 pick. Really, in retrospect, I think he was the best of the offensive tackles.
The Giants made it. The Giants made everything chaos though when they took Andrew Thomas. Though.
Yes, that was the big surprise pick.
They should have taken Wirfs.
Right.
Well, Becton's good too, though.
Becton's really good.
Yeah, Wirfs was the 4th tackle off the board behind Thomas, Wills, and Becton, and then it's Wirfs.
I guess they decided he was not a left tackle material, but he's a hell of an athlete, and he's a really good right tackle. I think he could probably play left.
And I mean, he's got to be good if because Tom Brady had to have his hand in the bowl on that pick, and then for him to say, "Hey, Wirfs is the guy," and they even traded up a pick to get him. It shows how highly Brady thinks of him at least.
Honestly, Tampa should move him to left tackle right now because that Donovan Smith guy is weak.